Today we have an 08 Porsche Cayenne GTS with a direct injected V8, and we have the P0455 code. So we've got a big evap leak. We're gonna test the evap system and make sure that the evap system is nice and tight. Here's the purge valve, oftentimes known to cause issues, cause intermittent tank leaks, right? Either small leaks or large leaks. All it is a solenoid inside there, and it's just allowing fuel vapors to get pulled from the fuel tank into the intake manifold and then get burned. So right here we have the evaporative system exposed. We've removed the right rear wheelhouse from this car, and where we have already smoke tested the evap lines. We've smoke tested everything in the evap system in this car. The evap is testing totally tight. When we were smoking the evap system, we were making sure that we were tapping on this, trying to get it to leak, and we could not get it to leak at all. When we did the purge system test with the PWIS, you push enter and you come over here and you feel it clicking. It just sends like a constant modulated current source to here, and you can feel it opening and closing. And this one had a nice open and close feel. I don't know if it was actually opening and closing, but it was definitely getting a signal to open and close. Same thing with the LDP in the rear. So we knew the wiring was okay going to them, so we didn't have to worry about rodents chewing through wires or anything. We're not getting any sort of a circuit kind of a code. All we're getting is a code saying that the evaporative system is leaking. So we're over here now in the PWIS tester, and you could see from the previous scan tool we had the same code, PO455, but the other scan tool had a little bit of a different definition. The Porsche tester says tank system major leak, no signal. Just saying that there's a major leak in the evaporative system and there's no signal. At this point we have tested the evap system. We removed the rear seats. We made sure that the fuel level center O-rings weren't leaking. We checked for the purge valve leaking anything. We like tapped on it while we were smoking it. We were trying to get anything to leak out of this car. And we're getting a pending PO455 back on this car right now in less than a 1 mile test drive. So we clear the codes. PO455 comes back as pending within about 1.5 miles. What we're trying to do is find a signal vacuum going to the LDP pump. So we already had the right rear wheelhouse off the car. So we're trying to find signal vacuum to the LDP pump to make sure that we're getting a vacuum source all the way back here at the LDP pump. So that source vacuum is coming right from this hose right here. Right from that hose, going right onto that LDP pump. So we put a vacuum tester right in here and we got 0 inches of vacuum. So what we then did is we hooked up our evap tester and we smoked it. And we can already see we've got greater than a 40 thousandths leak coming out of our dial. We're smoking the vacuum source signal now, and we can see right there, this thing's just smoking like a chimney. There's something underneath the intake manifold that is leaking vacuum. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the intake manifold, find what's leaking underneath there, and fix it. From there, we're gonna go retest the system and see if our 455 or PO455 code goes away. If it does, then we'll talk about theories of why and how a PO455 code can set on a car when it's not a large leak in the evap. It might be something else. A couple reasons why the PO455 is misleading on the repair of this car is because we did not have an actual large evap leak. So the first thing that a technician is going to get caught on is how to check, where do we have vacuum source coming from any of these things. And I can tell you, I pulled a couple pictures from Parts Link 24 here, the Porsche Pet. The components in here do not get intake manifold vacuum from the intake manifold. They don't get actual intake manifold vacuum. They get vacuum pump vacuum, which is very similar to intake manifold vacuum. So don't be fooled by that. The LDP in the rear gets vacuum from the vacuum pump off the right rear of the cylinder head. The vacuum switching valve to the tuning valve for the intake manifold gets its vacuum from the vacuum pump. Both of those vacuum sources come from this pipe right here, number 14 in the picture, that goes off to the back of the vacuum pump. It goes to a line that feeds to the right rear of the car where the LDP is. And it goes to it feeds a couple little sources of vacuum, one of them being to the vacuum switching valve for the tuning valve, right behind the intake manifold. One being another set of pipes that go to the rear of the car. The misleading part of this whole thing is we repaired this PO455. It had a broken elbow down here. It is not intake manifold vacuum. It is just vacuum from the vacuum pump. The car had software designing to tell you that it has a large evap leak instead of, say, tuning flap not working or no source vacuum at LDP or whatever else it could have done. It's not looking for any of that. It's just gonna flag a PO455, send you on a wild goose chase to go start finding a gross evap leak. And you're not gonna find a gross evap leak. Or maybe in your car you will, but in this car, just this little tiny broken vacuum line that goes up to the tuning valve, it was broken, and it just said that it had a gross evap leak. Easiest place to check for this, you can't go smoke the intake manifold because it's not where the source is coming from, so the intake will be tight. You go in the right rear wheelhouse, remove the vacuum pipe coming into the LDP, and then you can smoke it forward. And you're smoking all the source vacuum, this whole pipe, all these pipes, including the brake booster and everything else, you're filling through that one. That's probably the easiest place to access it. Back to the intake manifold. While the intake manifold is off of this car, so here's the new hose right here. Here's a new vacuum pipe. It's right here, and then it tees off and it goes right down there. That goes right to, if we can look it in there with a mirror. In the mirror is just where the vacuum line tees into the vacuum pump. Right there, a little brass nipple coming off the back of the pump. It goes up right to here, and then it goes over here to the vacuum switching valve that's going to be on the back of the intake manifold once that's reinstalled. Over here, this is the line that goes back to the LDP pump. This vacuum line right here also tees off right behind here that gets vacuumed. So this is also a vacuum line that goes to the rear of the car. We're gonna put a couple new little 5mm elbows on here. These are Porsche parts. And I always like to have part numbers for this stuff. That's a 948, 110, 126, 00. And that's a 5mm vacuum elbow. So you need those. Those are going to go on to the end of this line that hooks up to the other side of that vacuum switching valve that goes to an upper diaphragm up on the top. We've corrected everything in the front of the car, and so we're just going to check what we've done. We've got a vacuum hose hooked up to the LDP vacuum feed, which I showed you earlier. Now go ahead and fire it up, and we've got 0 vacuum right now. The car just started. And we are running, we're running about 18 inches of vacuum. Before we were 0 right here. So this is a confirmation. We have vacuum to the back of the car now. We're gonna now give back vacuum to the LDP, put it back together, and let's go test drive and run some monitors. So right now we're driving the car, trying to get all the monitors run. We're trying to get it to reset itself. So you can see I'm just in the slow lane, all the cars are passing me. I'm trying to go at about 55 miles an hour, and that's when these cars like to run monitors. Okay, so to summarize this car, we had a PO455, which, you know, everyone knows and thinks that that is a gross leak on the evap system. We checked the evap system and The evap system was very tight on this car, didn't have any leaks on it. And we found a huge leak of vacuum, just a bad vacuum elbow down underneath the intake manifold. Right now I've got all the monitors run on the car. I have no pending codes. I have no current active codes. So I feel confident giving this car back to the customer and the code's not coming back. So thanks for watching Durfix, and we will see you later.